So we've shown you how Doug Ford's been disastrous for the tenants and for the renters. And now with Bill 60 passing, that's going to be even more devastating for them. But we also know that Doug Ford has been a disaster when it comes to stabilizing the jobs and the middle class of this province here. And it is without hesitation that we're already seeing a lot of signs of the complete collapse of Ontario under Doug Ford. And this is an example of it from Global News. Ontario's manufacturing jobs fall to lower rate since 1976. That's 39 years ago, according to a budget watchdog. 1976. So we're at a lower rate in manufacturing. But, Doug Ford goes on TV and tells, he brags to, American counterparts, oh, Ontario's building back better and we're opening up for business. We're going to take on that bully Donald Trump. Roar! Doesn't look like it. Doesn't look like it. And when you see night after night of all these different layoffs and, Ford making an absolute buffoonery of himself when he did that Crown Royal dump out. He poured it out in front of the press there, not realizing that it's made in Manitoba. So you're saying to boycott the entire company, which is located in Manitoba, which is a Canadian company, which is going to cost more Canadian jobs. But, Doug Ford doesn't look past, the first quarter. He's one of the break things and do it fast kind of people. He just doesn't care about the consequences. So it goes on to say the Ford government's push to make Ontario a manufacturing powerhouse appears to be faltering. No kidding. According to the latest data from the province's budget watchdog, which found manufacturing activity is at its lowest level since 2015, the Financial Accountabilities Officer, the FAO, latest economic review found that manufacturing, which represents about 10% of the province's economy, has faced a number of challenges, including pandemic-related shutdowns, supply chain disruptions, shipping issues, auto plant retooling, slowing demand, and most recently, U.S. tariffs on Ontario's exports. The results, the watchdog found, was a decline in manufacturing output in 7 of the past 8 quarters between mid-2023 to mid-2025, leading to 20,600 fewer jobs, representing a declining share of the province's economy. Manufacturing jobs as a share of Ontario's total employment recently fell below 10% for the first time since record keeping began in 1976, the FAO said. The report offers a sharp contrast to Premier Doug Ford's characterization of the sector under his government, which has been heavily focused on leveraging taxpayer funds to attract new investments by offering tax credits, direct support, and production incentives. Yeah, remember all the times that he was going to bring, battery plants to Ontario? Oh, we're going to be the powerhouse of electric vehicles. We're going to bring battery production into the province. And then the companies either go bankrupt, they go elsewhere, or they realize that it's going to be costly because in order to create a electric battery production facility, they're going to need to create a power plant next to it. Shows you how energy efficient it really is. We've seen $70 billion of investment from manufacturing to auto to the tech sector, Ford recently said, an Ontario legislator. We have 825,000 manufacturing jobs. That's more than Florida, which is a bigger state, and New York, which is a bigger state combined. We have more manufacturing jobs here, Ford added. Obviously, he doesn't pay attention much. The FAO pointed out, however, that the province's manufacturing sector continues to erode, with real manufacturing activity in Ontario at its lowest level since 2015, excluding the pandemic period. The decline in manufacturing real GDP has been widespread, with the largest losses in auto industry minus 18.3%, machinery at minus 14.8%, and primary and fabricated metal products at negative 9%, the report states. So that ain't good. That ain't good. And considering that manufacturing really was one of the, pinnacle jobs you can get to stabilize a family, going back to even the 70s, 50s, that was kind of like the big job you can get. You can go work at the factories and you can get that income and you could support a family. You could put a roof over your head. What's that saying that if you work 40 hours a week, you should, there should be a chicken in every pot and a car in every garage. Isn't that saying goes? Now it's the complete opposite. And we're not producing anything. We're not producing anything, which is devastating not only for the province, but it's devastating for the entire country. Because you need to produce material to export to sell off to other countries so you can grow your GDP. And if we don't have a promising manufacturing sector, just like the eroding energy sector and everything else, and you just put it behind bureaucracy, the country's not going to grow. It's not going to stabilize. You can't have an economy grow on bureaucracy and office jobs. That's the thing. And it's also because of stuff like this. So Toronto Crime Watch says over 10,000 Canadian skilled trade workers are laid off at home in Ontario. Doug Ford flooded Ontario's construction industry with cheap foreign labor from one part of the world to please his developer and builder buddies. The program was recently canceled due to rampant fraud. So this is also why they want to keep blaming the tariffs. They want to keep blaming that, oh, it's economics. You wouldn't understand and it's hard to explain. But what they're failing to tell you, and the reality is that Doug Ford is trying to undermine Ontario workers. He's trying to undermine Ontario middle-class, hard-working Canadians, people that are citizens here or even legal immigrants that went through the proper channels and loophole legalities to be here, to flood the country with cheap immigrants so you can exploit them for cheap labor. And who does that please? His donor buddies. So he's completely corrupted. Doug Ford's completely corrupted. And he's going to continue on with this because it helps his donor buddies. It doesn't help the province. It doesn't help the economy. It makes him look terrible. And his polling numbers are now showing that. So why is he bringing in more migrants who basically are unqualified? A lot of these people are unqualified for these positions. Why is he doing this? Because it helps the corporations. The same way that Tim Hortons is allowed to scam Canadians out of their jobs and import a bunch of migrants to work at their restaurants. And a lot of other companies are doing the exact same thing. So here's Rupa Shamramana. How do you say that? Rupa Shamramana. Sure. I'm sorry if I mispronounced it. Says it's no accident that all these men come from one religion in India, not known for its scientists and engineers, but for its drugs and criminality. Canadians who trace their ancestry back to this area and well represented in Canada's parliament, the politicians represent key swing constituents where the ethnic vote from this one religion is crucial. These guys protesting know powerful people with strong ethnic ties to their community had their backs, and that's why they're sticking around with staggering sense of entitlement and protesting despite being out of the status. So they're exploiting these people. And this is where I've been saying that I don't blame the migrant themselves because they're part of this situation. They're being exploited the same way we're being exploited. They're dragging them into here. They're basically trafficking them into Canada, exploiting them for cheap labor, and they're specifically choosing these select areas because they know that they can be easily influenced by the parliament. That's why they do that. That's why they pick these individuals. Because if they really cared about, getting the best skilled people to run the machines, why are they not looking to European countries? Why are they not looking to Nordic countries? Why are they not getting migrants from Russia? They have construction crews. They build, fantastic buildings over there. Why are they not implementing Chinese infrastructure? Have you seen Chinese communities? They're fantastic. But no, they want to bring in people from a certain select portion of India. And they know exactly why they're doing it. And here's a video of this. So this is one of the migrants, a construction worker here, being part of this protest. And let's hear what he has to say about this.
My name is Shobhijit Singh, and I am an applicant of Ontario Immigrant Nominee Program under the Skilled Trade Stream. And I have applied last year, and they just returned my file saying I am a fraud. I used to work for Rogers as a technician. I don't know if these companies are fake and when did they become fake. I'm asking the companies, if you guys are fake, please post it that you are fake now, because we don't know when these companies got said that they are fake actually. And they kept over inviting the applicants. They said we have returned your money, but they didn't have returned. They are not trying to compensate us in any way, because with this our work permits have been expired and we are just running out of status, and at the end we are being said just return to your country, right? And on the one hand, government is saying that we need more and more skilled workers, but we all are here skilled workers. We accept that coins has two sides. One may be bad. We understand that might be there are chances of fraud, but what about those genuine applicants who applied in good faith?
So it's kind of interesting. So they're protesting because of the fraud. They got caught with fraud, which rightfully so. It is fraudulent documents that brought them into the country and allowed them to work at these facilities for cheap labor. So if that's the case, why isn't the employer being charged? That's the thing I don't understand about this. This is the thing that's so... It's astonishing to hear this argument that, everyone wants to demonize the migrant. They want to say, well, it's the migrant that decided to come over here and, take the job, and then he's protesting about how he got scammed with fraud. Well, shouldn't also the employer be charged with fraudulence, because they're the ones that reached out to the migrant and hired them under unlawful, unethical terms? Shouldn't they be the ones dealing with the punishment? Because as I stated, the migrant just thought he was getting a opportunity in Canada and was willing to work for these companies. He didn't know what was going on. He wasn't understanding the scam. Just like a lot of people, they're just looking to get by. They're looking to find work, whatever means necessary. And they take the opportunity. They get hired on by these corporations, not knowing they're going to be exploited, until something like this happens, until the point that now they're charged with fraudulence. And none of the blame goes towards the employers. None of the blame goes towards the NGOs that traffic these people so that corporations can get access to cheap labor. None of the blame ever goes to Doug Ford that allowed amnesty for a lot of these people so they can be further exploited for cheap labor. Or Mark Carney, who said to a reporter that the two biggest priorities of the country is the tariffs and access to cheap labor. Those are the two biggest priorities, according to Mark Carney, that he has to deal with when it comes to Canadian companies. Not the economy, not carbon taxes that are destroying things, not cost of living, not making sure that Canadians have a decent job so they can afford to live. No, two of the biggest priorities is the tariffs and access to cheap labor. How can we exploit more people? That's what Canadian companies are looking for. If you can even say they're Canadian companies. Tim Hortons isn't. Tim Hortons is brought to you by Restaurant Brands International, which is a Brazilian investment firm. That's why they're able to do this. Because they don't have to abide by Canadian laws. They can just demand the government to say, hey, open up the borders. We need to bring in more migrants for our restaurants. So that's the thing. Is, yes, you can put the blame on migrants as much as you want and say that you're stealing the jobs away. But who's really stealing the jobs? The migrant that's just looking for an opportunity to work and get ahead and survive just like any other one of us? Or the employer that knows it's illegal to do this fraudulent scheme, they do it anyway so they can get cheap labor off these people. Cheap labor by people who are probably not skilled at this job and completely demising against Canadians who could be qualified or be eligible to be qualified or could train them to be qualified. Remember those days you can actually train someone to do a specific job? What happened to that? Oh, we can't train anybody anymore. What? Why? Why was that a problem? So here's Doug Ford. This is back in July when he announced that he's going to bypass the federal government and directly issue work permits to 100,000 asylum seekers in Ontario. So the guy that is, Mr. Jobs, who's trying to build back Ontario, who thinks he's got the right step forward when it comes to the good, hardworking people of the province, completely obliterated you by sidestepping against Canadian workers so he can get more work permits for 100,000 asylum seekers for his buddies. So that his billionaire broker buddies, his contractors can get cheap labor quickly. Because they don't want to actually hire Canadians and treat them like an actual employee. So why isn't the blame and the punishment going towards people like this? Here's Doug Ford saying.
I have a tremendous amount of asylum seekers that are up in Etobicoke and in the hotels. They're healthy, they're willing to work, they're hardworking people, but they're waiting over 2 years.
So are Canadians. There's Canadians that are healthy, looking to work, and maybe out of a job for some time. Why are we not looking to them? Why are we not looking to them? Oh, well, we can't, train them and we need high skills and then they come up with all these excuses, but they don't actually want to do anything to actually bring the province together and actually make it sustainable. What Doug Ford wants to do is for his billionaire donors to get access to cheaper labor because they don't want to pay an actual employee and give them benefits and treat them like people. No, they just want to get some slum they got off the boat and treat them like horse shit.
And they're just sucking off the system nonstop. Not their fault. The fault falls under immigration, that it takes over 2 years to get a work permit. So as we're paying education, paying healthcare, paying their rent in hotels, which is exorbitant, they want to get out there and they want to be like everyone.
So why isn't Doug Ford telling Mark Carney this? Why isn't he bringing attention to Mark Carney to say, you got to deal with this immigration crisis. You got to stop the flow of illegal migration. You got to close up the border. We got to have secure borders. Why isn't Doug Ford saying this then? If he's complaining about it's such a cost burn, all the healthcare and education and, maintaining these asylum seekers, then you got to bring that attention to Mark Carney. But no, he's going to say, no. We're just going to fast track it so that the asylum seekers can go work for jobs that could be eligible for Canadians and make unemployment even more incredibly increasing.
Every other Canadian, they want to find a job. They want to be able to first start off renting a condo or part of a house and then buying a house. But we're tired of waiting around. I can't wait around. It's costing our province an absolute fortune. Just last year, we were close to 100,000 asylum seekers, and I'm still waiting to get paid back from the federal government. That's one issue. But there's jobs available in Ontario, and we need to give them work permits and make sure that they're out there working and contributing back to society. I'm not waiting any longer. We're issuing work permits in Ontario for these folks to give back and contribute to society in Ontario.
So there's the Premier of Ontario sidestepping against Ontarians. Well, we gotta get things done. We gotta, deal with our buddies and the donors and the contractors and the sleazy con artists. So we're just gonna fast track a bunch of illegal migrants and make them work for nothing, because I'm tired of waiting around for Canadians. We can actually train them and make them qualified, and they can actually earn a living and maybe actually contribute more to the economy and actually make the country a bit better. How great would that be? So now here's recent Doug Ford at Queen's Park. And you think with a disastrous jobs report and all the stuff he's done trying to protect illegal migrants and giving them work permits instead of actually getting competent Canadians to work these jobs, he's going to defend the migrants. I kid you not. With a disastrous jobs report, he's still going to defend having illegal migrants flood into the country to take jobs.
Does he understand immigration comes through the federal government? Does he understand that myself and four colleagues last night Sunday, while he was watching the football games, we were out talking to those same people that were outside Friday. They realize it's the federal government. I'll be talking to the Prime Minister about this, along with all the other premiers. We're sending a letter to the Prime Minister to fix the problem on the immigration. These people came over, they've been trained, I've talked to owners of companies, they're hard-working people. And all of a sudden, 2 years later, the federal government pulls the plug on them. Is there a reason why colleagues like Wab Kinew, Premier Eby, other premiers across the province are all uniting to write a letter to talk to the Prime Minister to stop the nonsense? We need these hard-working people. That's the difference. Does he understand immigration?
So, Doug Ford saying that these premiers have to come together to write to the federal government, not to deal with the immigration crisis, not to deal with the asylum seekers, not to close down the borders and not accept this uncertain flow of the population that we cannot deal with. It's a simple mathematical issue. You bring in so many people to towns and communities that only have so much services, it's going to be a disaster, which is what we're dealing with right now. So instead of dealing with that like a responsible person, Doug Ford saying, no, we're going to write letters to make sure we continue to open the floodgates and allow for asylum seekers to get fraudulent work visas so that employers that are exploiting the system for cheap labor get an easier access to them. This is a complete betrayal of Canadian workers, a complete betrayal of the Canadian middle class. That, hey, we don't really care about you. We really don't care about you. Oh, well, all those, manufacturing jobs, time hard to say what exactly is the cause of it. I mean, so many things. We can go on and on. But while you're thinking about that, and while you're sitting at home wondering if you're going to keep your lights on or feed yourself, we're going to bring in this guy and use him for cheap labor. We don't know his name. We don't know where he came from. Can't even pronounce his name or know exactly if he's qualified for the job. But hey, he has 2 arms and 2 legs, and he's gonna do it. And I'll give him a penny. Unbelievable. Really, just unbelievable. How disgusting. How disgusting these people really are. And the fact that they're just so vocal about it, like they don't even try to hide it anymore. They're just openly front and honest. Like, yeah, we're going to just deal with more migrants. Instead of, hey, maybe we can reach out to some of those younger people, train them for the jobs of tomorrow, all those promises you made beforehand, how you brought up youngsters and say, anything is possible. Well, looks like you're saying that, no, you're young, you can't do anything. How's that going to work out? How's that going to shape the future of this province? Knowing all this, and you're still going to side with the exploitation instead of actually dealing with the situation that you have high unemployment, that jobs are becoming more and more scarce, and you are not fighting as a premier, as a leader for this province. You're fighting for the donors. You're fighting for your billionaire buddies who want an easier access to cheap foreign labor because they don't give a damn. And if we really gave a damn about dealing with immigration, dealing with these fraudulent documents, we'd be going right at the employers. We'd be going right at to the employers and demanding they be punished for exploiting the system. We'd be going right to the heads of Tim Hortons. We'd be going right to the heads of Canadian Tire. We'd be going right to the head of these construction companies. Hey, you can't hire this person fraudulently. And if you want, labor, there are people out there you can reach to. I'm sure anyone can work any job, given the right pay and given the right training and ability. They will do anything. They will do anything.